Good afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan here with another episode of Inspirational Influencer News. Secrets of people making money while making a difference. And my guest today, Tammy S. Drost, is an award-winning business and brand strategist and top 10 business coach. She is definitely someone who is making a difference. With 20 plus years as a business coach, Tammy, as a business and brand strategist, marketing executive, pardon me, while I get my screen sorted out here, head of operations in agency, corporate, and nonprofit environments, Tammy recognized that regardless of industry and asset size, each organization faced similar challenges. Through a 360-degree approach, she implemented award-winning solutions for large, complex corporations and realized they could be tailored to small businesses. In 2019, Tammy founded the Business 360 Method to equip female entrepreneurs with knowledge, strategies, tools, resources, and support to build a strategic and integrated business foundation that gets them down to business and back to living. That sounds really good. The Business 360 Method offers business and brand strategy and alignment with one-to-one coaching, a private Facebook community, a done-for-you business plan, strategic planning, and an 8-week business brand marketing and communications program with group coaching. Tammy speaks about business, brand, marketing, leadership, and self-confidence. She's a boy mom, and I already asked her about that. And she tells me she's got sons. So needless to say, she enjoys traveling, kayaking, the gym, yoga, good books when she can be alone with her book and not running around after her boys, and time with her 4 pets. So thank you, Tammy. And I'm looking forward to your talk, how a roadmap can position you and your business for success. I think we all need a roadmap. We kind of are traveling on a journey. So what is it, the one thing that you really want people to take away from today, and have a roadmap that takes them where they'd like to go?
Well, I have to admit that myself, I haven't always been a planner, but for a lot of people, having a plan kind of means getting locked into a set structure and you don't have a lot of room for spontaneity. And a lot of people tend to be adventurers by nature. They like to explore, they like to keep their options open. And, what I found as I was starting a business and, with my background, I actually came across a study not too long ago, and it indicated that 47% of small business owners have no formal business strategy to support their business growth. And then out of that, 25% only have an informal verbal business plan. So it's not even on paper, while 23% have no plan whatsoever. And I was shocked by those statistics, because nowadays, if we're going someplace unfamiliar and it's across town, we're not going to go there without a GPS. So why are so many entrepreneurs and business owners flying by the seat of their pants? And, a business plan, and I'd say, the strategy is the most intelligent decision you can make in business.
Well, it certainly is like flying without a GPS, and not too many people would set out on a journey of, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days without a pretty good idea of a destination and a plan to get there. Yet we take and head out on life journeys of 5, 10, 20 years without a plan. And then we wonder why it doesn't quite match our pictures. I mean, there is something a little crazy about that, isn't there?
Yeah, it certainly is.
So how can you help them?
Well, through my years of experience on the agency, the corporate, and then the nonprofit side, I started to see a lot of similarities, and it didn't matter what industry, what asset size it was, there were similarities. And, one of those things were silos. Another was, the lack of streamlined business operations. And then the lack of business and brand strategy alignment, and then the lack of integrated marketing communications. And if you really think about it, all of those things are elements of a business plan. But people tend to, especially if you're more of a creative versus a business-minded person, a lot of times you tend to shy away from that because maybe you're not comfortable figuring out how to do a competitive analysis, or you're not comfortable trying to figure out who your ideal client is. So what I do is I coach people through that. I call it a done with you, because we are essentially doing it together. It's a combination of online training, a combination of coaching, and then a combination of do it yourself, where they're taking the tools, the strategies, and the resources, and they're starting to build their plan. And what I found is when they start to do that, they realize that it's much easier than they thought, number one. And number two, they start to see opportunities that they didn't even know existed. And they realize, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and they think they have to be all over on social media. And the bottom line is, if your market's not there, you don't need to be there. So I really help them hone in on where they need to be to reach their audience. And, there's so many intricate parts of a business plan. But at the end of the day, it gives them a big picture, holistic approach to where they want to be in 3 to 5 years.
Well, that's great, because and there's a word that you use. Before I talk generally, what did you mean by silos? That I wasn't sure how that fit into this.
A lot of times there's silos in business where one department doesn't necessarily know what another department is doing, or one founder of the business doesn't know what the other founder of the business is doing, so to speak. So they're kind of going in these different directions, and that can present a lot of challenges because they're working towards different goals. And when you have a plan to work from, let's call it a step-by-step roadmap, because really that's what it is, because it's laying out your business and brand strategy. It's laying out your business goals. It's, aligning your brand strategy with that. And then how are you going to market it? How are your marketing and communications going to deliver that to your market, so to speak, so that you can meet those goals? And by doing that, you have this holistic approach where everybody knows what you're doing. Your employees should be aware of what the company goals are. The other thing it does is, if you run into something, for example, like the recent pandemic, a lot of people think business plans are one and done, and they're not. They're not something that you should put on a shelf. When, something like a pandemic happens, now you can pull it off the shelf. You can pull it out and say, wait, we need to revisit this because we were going to do all in-person events this year. Now, all of a sudden we can't. So what are we going to do so that our business can survive and thrive through this? So there's a lot of reasons to have a business plan when you're starting a business, but also to keep that business plan front and center as you're evolving your business and growing your business.
That's wonderful advice. And, I think the thing that people need to understand is, for heaven's sakes, get a plan, have some idea of where you're going, some idea of the road blocks or road maps along the way. It's sort of like, I wouldn't try to drive across the country without some idea of where I might stop for a coffee, or where I might think about bedding down for the night. And, because obviously I have to have somewhere to stop. I'm not going to drive across the country in a single day, because I live on the West Coast, and it would be a real journey. And yet, and I find it too, that, people just kind of try to get clients. I work with smaller coaching people more than you do, but you know, I just need another client. I just need another client. And you know, when you say they don't know even who their ideal client is, I mean, oh, anybody will do. And well, you know, I mean, how good does that make anybody feel? You know, and it's like without a brand. Well, do you buy the no-name brand off this, you know, shelf, or do you go for something branded that you think you can trust? So, I mean, it's kind of here I can see that, you know, really people need a roadmap, at least a roadmap.
Well, you know, one of the things that people don't consider too is a business plan includes a succession plan. It helps you identify, you know, what's going to happen to your business if suddenly, especially small business or where you're a solopreneur, what's going to happen if suddenly you're ill or something happens or you have a family situation that you have to deal with and you can't be running the day-to-day business anymore? What's your succession plan? And it also helps position you to get funding if you need a grant, because maybe you're struggling. Maybe you need a grant for a specific purpose in your business, or you want to get a small business loan. They're going to look for, and they're going to want a business plan. And I often see people too saying, well, I need help. And they're not quite sure what they need. So they just hire somebody because they know they need help. And what a business plan does is it helps you determine who do you need as partners, who are the most effective partners, for example, to have in your organization. Who do you want to be your advisors? Who do you want, you know, for an attorney, a business attorney? Who's your accountant, so to speak? And then if you do need to bring someone on, you're able to bring the person with the right skill sets to the table, because so many small businesses start out maybe in their garage, maybe in their living room, and sometimes they have family volunteers, and then they end up hiring people who don't necessarily have the right qualifications as the business scales. So the business plan helps with that. It just helps you takes you through those steps so you can lay it out what you need to be successful.
Well, I mean, and it must be very rewarding for your clients to suddenly actually sit back and go, oh, I'm building a business. Oh, okay. Because I think that a lot of smaller businesses get started without much thought that they're building a business. You know, I mean, as I said, I work in the coaching space, and most coaches have very little thought that they're building a business, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm just trying to get a couple of clients, you know. Just a minute, you know. That's not going to work really well. And you know, why should somebody choose you? And of course, they have no answer. You know, I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, but I need clients. I mean,
It's all
and
about, you know, it's all about positioning yourself, you know, positioning yourself as a business owner to reach the right market, but then having the tools to keep you on track. Because I can't tell you how many, you know, business owners have come to me and said, you know, somebody came to me, one of my team members came to me, and they have this brilliant idea and they want to implement it. But it doesn't align with my business goals, but everybody else is doing it. So should I do it? That's a perfect opportunity to pull out your business plan and say, well, you know, that's a really cool idea. Let's talk about it. But let's go back to see what our business goals are and see what we're doing with marketing right now, because the business plan includes the marketing plan, and determine it. Is it the right way to go for us? 90% of the time, it's not, because it's kind of that squirrel moment where you're on track towards your goals, and all of a sudden there's this really cool squirrel running off to the side, and you're like, oops, and you're off track. So it keeps you focused. It really keeps you focused on the end goals.
well, and it gives you something to compare everything else to once you've made some decisions and given it some thought, because it's really easy to change your mind when you haven't given it a lot of thought. You know, it's sort of like, oh, that seems like a good idea. And that seems like, and you know, today's world, And, now after the pandemic, we're all online. So we're all communicating with one another all the time. And I'm sure your email is like my email. Everybody's good ideas in there every day, and it's like, oh my, what's your plan? And so it's so good that you are helping people really with that plan, because I know, I'm constantly just having to go click, 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 click. And they all look like really cool, fun things to learn more about,
Yeah. And, a lot of people too, I think, have it that, oh, business plans are just for startups, and while they are for startups, they help you understand, do you have a viable product? Do you have a program that's the right program, or are your services the right services for your market? But for seasoned entrepreneurs, it really does help keep them on track and focused. So it's, I look at it as one of the best tools and the cheapest tools to help business owners evolve and pivot their business quickly.
So, are there a lot of people like you who help people create plans in this space, or is that hard to find for really, really tiny businesses?
I think for really tiny businesses, there's a lot of do-it-yourself templates where, people are kind of, here's a template, do it. But if somebody is not a business-minded person, or they're not a marketer or a brand specialist, it can be tremendously overwhelming and challenging for somebody because it's not their area of expertise. So to be able to have somebody walk you through that and really help you identify what your goals are. Some of these goals might be, well, I want to get a small business loan and I need X amount of dollars to help me build out my technology and my business. Then that means the business plan needs to really be structured to meet that goal, so that when you put it in front of a lender can say, oh yeah, you have all your I's dotted, your T's crossed, this is what we need, and let's get working on your loan. So it can be challenging when you're trying to start a business, because there's so many things, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur and there's nobody else in your business yet. There's so many things coming at you from all different directions. You're overwhelmed by technology. You're overwhelmed by the marketing and all the different things that maybe you're not fluent in that are being thrown at you. So that's just one thing that can be taken off their plate. But part of going through a business plan with somebody else, it gives them an in-depth view of their business from every angle, from the operations to the business to the brand to the marketing and communications. So they'll always have that big picture approach, and they always understand that they have that strategic foundation to go back to. One of the things that I saw is that one of the statistics I came across is lack of a business plan usually results in 70% of the businesses failing within the first 5 years.
Well, and that hasn't changed. Way back in the day, like a long time ago, I was a lawyer helping businesses create things like business plans in order to get public financing and stuff. And, the businesses without plans, A, didn't get financing, and B, didn't last very long.
No, they don't. A business plan automatically positions you as a business owner and your business to work strategically versus reactively. And I think business owners need to ask themselves, do you want to spend every day putting out fires with short-term solutions that don't necessarily support your business goals? Or do you want to be working proactively where you're 2 to 3 moves ahead in your business? You're focused on the future, you're forward thinking, and you're not putting out fires because you have a plan, you know where you're headed. And if something does come up, you anticipate it. You anticipate that it's going to happen. You anticipate the challenges, and you put solutions in place that are aligned with your business plan.
Yeah, I can definitely see that would really help the small business owner. And so where else do businesses really get stuck once you've kind of started to lay out the business plan? And does that create more problems that they get to then solve, or how does that process play out?
I think where they get stuck is, a lot of times it's that mindset. It's like, oh, I did a business plan. I have a business plan. I have all the information. I'm good. No. Where's your action plan? The next step is an action plan, because you have your business plan. Now, what are the steps you're going to take to make sure you hit those goals that are laid out and that you've defined in your business plan? It's also not communicating with your employees. When your employees don't understand their role, they haven't gone through an onboarding process in your business to understand your business and your branding. They're not familiar with your marketing. They don't know what the big picture goals are. They tend to work in one of those silos because they don't have access. There's no transparency. But when they understand what their position is and the impact they have within their particular department, particular role, you have engaged employees. Now, all of a sudden, you have people who are engaged. They're passionate about what they want to do in delivering results because they know what they're working towards.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they feel like they're more a part of the whole business, as opposed to, okay, I've been hired to do X, so I'll do X. And it might be that they have skills that are more than X, but they just have X as a skill. And yet they'd happily contribute more if they just knew you needed more.
Yeah, it helps with strategic planning too. So when each department, if you have like a mid-sized business, for example, and you have different departments or different roles, it helps bring all of those departments, all of those individuals together, really to develop an annual strategic plan to say, okay, well, here's where we are. Here's where we're starting. We all know the goals. Here's what we're going to do. They check in with each other, and it's now you have this team behind you as a business owner who's supporting your business objectives and goals.
How great that must feel when, because entrepreneurship is a little bit lonely, it's kind of like, who's helping me, like, really, why did I do this all by myself? But, it's great to know that there are people out there in your corner and people that you can turn to. And I think that's why coaching has developed so much over the past few years, because a lot of people have turned to entrepreneurship for a million different reasons. But, a lot of them rely on coaches like you to get them to understand the bigger picture. Even, they started with a skill. I work with people who provide transformation in a lot of different areas. So, maybe they help people who have trouble sleeping, and they, help them be able to sleep naturally, or whatever it is that they do. So they have their particular thing that they do for people. And yet, it can be a tremendous business because there's a lot of people with the problem. But then again, there's all this other part that has to go. You may be able to solve a big problem for people, but if they don't know you exist, they're not going to come find you. And then there's the whole thing about specialties and not specialties, and it's a complicated thing setting up your business.
Well, and I think a business plan too also gives employees more autonomy, because they know what the impact of their role, they know what they need to do, they know what the goals are that they need to work towards. which frees up the business owner to focus on scaling the business and focus on strategy, because they're not constantly answering questions. They're not constantly having to, you know, be involved in some of the day-to-day stuff. They're freed up to do what they do best. And let's face it, as entrepreneurs, we don't have a lot of resources. Sometimes we get caught up in the administrative stuff because there's no one else to do it. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you're hiring an expert, you're hiring them for a reason. You're hiring them because you trust them to be an advisor to you. And having a plan and knowing why you hired that person and what they're going to bring to the table and what their responsibilities are regarding the big picture really helps you give that person the autonomy that they need. And it comes back to you, I think, tenfold as an entrepreneur, because you're getting, you know, the quality in return.
Well, and you're getting the whole person. I mean,
Yeah.
because they feel like they're important, as opposed to, you know, I've just been hired, you know, it was sort of like somebody who is a secretary versus a typist in a typing pool, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, big difference, because their responsibilities and their role around law offices and stuff was hugely different, you know. And I was old enough to grow up when there was a typing pool, you know. So it was, you know, just a huge difference. And you know, so I mean, the skill sets have changed, and now we're all sort of typists, whether we want to be or not, because we got our computers and our phones and everything else. But it doesn't mean that we still don't have to have, you know, areas that are our responsibility and other things that we should be getting the heck out of there.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people, you know, feel sometimes that if a business plan is going to limit them, but it's really not. It's a living, breathing document that's going to help them evolve their business and help them grow their business. And it's going to help keep them on track and take them to the next step and show them, you know, what they need to get there. So I always say to business owners, look at it as a living, breathing tool. It's one of the most important tools that you have in your toolbox as a business.
So, Tammy, how can people get hold of you? And do you have a resource or something, if they get hold of you, that you can kind of give them as something that they could look at and get some ideas about what might help them get started with a business plan? Or how would they go about getting started?
Actually, I have, if you go to tammydrost.com, there's a link on the homepage and the banner of the website to book a meeting. And I have a variety of meetings. Sometimes if people aren't sure, they can just book a networking meeting. There's no selling, there's nothing. It's just getting to know one another and how I might be able to help them, or how we might be able to support one another. And I would say if they're looking for a business plan, book the meeting called the Business 360 Strategy Session. I like to have conversations initially, because just like no person is the same, no business is the same. They're all unique. And I like to create that custom plan with somebody. And, you know, then we get them started.
That would be great. I'm sure that would be an incredibly valuable resource. And, you know, something at least people should have a conversation about and start thinking about, you know, and really, because everybody should have a plan. You know, like I said, nobody start a trip across the country without a plan on how to get there. And yet you start a trip on a business, which, you know, could lead to a lot of money, and you don't have a plan, you know. I mean, really, it's sort of silly. And, you know, many of us start businesses without even thinking about where it is that we'd like that business to go, and what kinds of things would be attractive to us. And what would an ideal business look like? I mean, even taking a look at things like that can be a real eye opener for business, for people if they just ask themselves questions like that.
Well, let's face it, every entrepreneur is going to make mistakes. It's human nature. We're going to make mistakes. But a lot of those mistakes can be negated by having a plan, and a lot of those mistakes can be very costly if you don't have a plan. So I would encourage them, if they're not sure, they have questions, definitely book a call with me, the Business 360 strategy session. It's free. And even if you don't decide to work with me, you have a half hour with me that's totally free where I'm going to give you some advice.
And that's great. And I mean, to get there, all you have to do is go to Tammy Drost. You can see how to spell her name right there. It's underneath her picture. And she can at least set you in the right direction and give you some ideas. I mean, and this is a very, very talented lady. So for heaven's sakes, take advantage of it. Go tap into her knowledge, her experience. I mean, 30 minutes with her is a real gift. So be sure to do that. And Tammy, I want to thank you for being a guest on my show. You have contributed terrifically, and I am grateful.
Thank you, Mary.